Hello, how are you? Hope you are doing good. The topic for today is the five branches of chemistry. Uh, this is like the one of the basic topics, but a preliminary knowledge is necessary for understanding what we are going to learn in this lecture. For example, now that we have studied about periodic table and we have studied about the basics of chemistry like atoms, matter, elements, and we have talked about ions, the cations and the anions, and we have discussed about the proton number, neutron number. So now we are in a position to go through the this is like a basic topic for the chemistry because we are going to discuss the five branches of chemistry, so it should have been the first topic, but without having the knowledge of the initial things that we had discussed, it would have been not been clear. So uh, here's the definition of chemistry. What is chemistry? Chemistry is the study of composition of matter and the changes it undergoes. um, we have talked about matter, and in few scenarios we have talked about the composition of matter also, but the whole of the chemistry basically, we are going to discuss this on a daily basis, the composition of matter and the changes it undergoes. So that's what we are going to study in the five branches of chemistry. So to explain it better, I am going to explain it with an example or a case study so that you will understand the five branches of chemistry clearly. So it's a kind of a gross example or a gross case study, but this will be a very beneficial or helpful in understanding the five branches of chemistry. So there is a group of five chemists from each of the five branches of chemistry. What are those five branches? The organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, biochemistry, analytical chemistry, and the fifth one is analytical physical chemistry. So there is a group of five chemists from each of the five branches of chemistry, and they are out hiking the Appalachian Trail on a cold day. So they come up upon some fresh, steaming pile of dung. So that's gross. Did it come from a rabbit, a deer, a bear, or worse? Was it from a human being? So that was the question. So with all the chemist abilities, they will be able to figure this out. So let's see how they are going to figure out that what animal is this dung from. So the organic chemistry is the study of compounds that contain the element carbon. Carbon is the basis of all life, all of the human life, like the plants, the animals, the human beings. So the carbon is the basic component of whatever we are made up of. So carbon is present in glucose, carbon is present in all the carbohydrates, carbon is present in the protein, carbon is present in fats. So whatever we are intaking, so everything, the food we eat, all of the plants, all of these things that make up life, they are all made up of carbon. So carbon is the basis of all life. Carbon can be found almost everywhere, but here are few examples of carbon based compounds like fuels such as petroleums and the gas and the oil and the coal. So all of these fuels are carbon based compounds, and almost all of the medicine that is also made up of carbon. Food is also carbon based, and our DNA, like the human body, is made up of cells, tiny cells, and all of these cells, they have DNA in their nucleus. So that DNA is carbon based also. So in short, the whole human body structure, it is completely carbon based. So in organic chemistry, we will study the compounds that contain the element carbon, and most of the time hydrogen is also present with the carbon. So organic chemist would take a sample of dung and test it with a lab instrument to see if the animal was a vegetarian or carnivore based on the various degraded foods present in the feces. So he will like be testing the feces for any kind of degraded foods. If the animal was a vegetarian, he would be like eating only the vegetables, so the degraded food in the feces would be based on the vegetables only. So if it was a carnivore, it would be eating like animals. So when the sample is tested in the lab, so it would like show the presence of it will show the presence of meat based food in the feces. So that would an organic chemist would do. It would He would take a sample of dung and test it in the lab to see if the animal was vegetarian or carnivore. So what would the inorganic chemist do? Inorganic chemistry is the study of compounds that are not made up of carbon or only have one carbon atom within them. Most of what is not alive is studied by inorganic chemists. Example includes rocks, calcium makeup in human bones, most acids, bases, and salts, and the natural gases found on Earth and in space. So, inorganic chemistry is a study of compounds that are not made up of carbon. So, oxygen, like the oxygen gas, as it is written in the fourth, the natural gases, that is oxygen, nitrogen, and in space the abundance of hydrogen. So these gases, they do not contain carbon, so they will be studied by the inorganic chemists. So all of the acids, most of the bases, or most of the acids and bases, and most of the salts, they also do not have carbon present within them. So it would also be covered in the inorganic chemistry. Other elements, for example calcium, magnesium based compounds, and they are also, most of them, or we can say that almost all of them do not have carbon in them. So all of the compounds in which carbon is not present, that would be studied by the inorganic chemist, or that will be covered in the inorganic chemistry. So in our case, or in our scenario, the inorganic chemist would take a sample of dung and figure out if it is an acid like vinegar, tomato juice, and acid rain, or a base like bleach, ammonia, and antacids by dropping the sample into a pH indicator liquid. So what does that mean? It means that a sample of dung will be taken by the inorganic chemist, and he will drop that sample into a pH indicator liquid. So a pH indicator liquid, basically, we will cover this in the later lectures, how a pH indicator works. But just for the little introduction, pH indicator indicates us about the sample being an acid or a base. So if we drop the sample into a pH indicator liquid, it would change the color according to the pH of the sample. The pH is basically the amount of hydrogen ions or the hydroxyl ions present in the sample. So it has a range from 0 to 14, and 0 being the strongest acid, and 14 being the strongest base, and 7 is the neutral. So the water we drink, we use is around or very near to the neutral value. So The inorganic chemist would drop the sample into the pH indicator liquid, and he would test if the sample is an acid or a base. So what would a physical chemist do? uh, Chemistry that relies on a lot of physics and maths to study the changes in energy that happen to matter. This area can deal with the mechanism, the rate, the energy transfer that occurs when matter undergoes a change. So, example includes what happened to the water molecules when it turns from ice to liquid. Why nylon has the ability to stretch, why plastics are flexible but strong at the same time. So the physical chemistry deals with the part, with the mechanism, the rate, and the energy transfer that occur when matter undergoes a change. So when a matter goes under a physical change, for example, boiling of water, melting of ice, or freezing of water, or condensation of steam, so all of these processes are like physical changes. So when when something happens, when there is a physical change to any like compound or any substance, that would be covered in the physical chemistry. One example is the freezing, melting, condensation, and the boiling of water. So what happens to the water molecules uh, when it is boiled or when it is melted from ice? So that would be covered in the physical chemistry. Another example is why nylon has the ability to stretch, as we know that the nylon, we can stretch it. So what happens at the atomic level, and what changes would be occurring at the atomic level, or the very like microscopic level. So that would be covered in the physical chemistry. Why plastics are flexible but strong at the same time, and that would be also covered in the physical chemistry. So in our case, we in the case study, the physical chemist would take the results that the organic chemist found and get more information about the degraded food. The physical chemist would not touch the feces. So the physical chemist would be like, he would take the results that the organic chemist found, like the organic, after that organic chemist has done his analysis or the lab experiment on the food found. So he would be like, the physical chemist would be testing the food like for any physical changes, how much the food like has degraded, and what is the structure, and what are the physical features of the dung. So the physical chemist would be doing that. The fourth one is analytical chemistry. So chemistry that detects and identifies if a substance is present in a sample. Qualitative analysis, and how much there is. Quantitative analysis, this chemist is concerned with the composition, what's inside, what something is made of substances. And analytical chemist may do such things as study a blood sample to see if poison is present, determine if a white powder is cocaine or baking soda, take a sample of paint to see how much lead poisonous to the humans is present. So analytical chemist would uh, be like dealing with the composition in a way that he would be doing the qualitative analysis and the quantitative analysis. Quantitative analysis is basically that how much of a substance is present or mixed in another substance, or how much of a substance is present that we are going to test. And qualitative analysis would be like dealing with the, if a substance is present, it would not show us any numbers, but it would be like, it would be a study of whether a substance is present or not, and what the mixture is composed of, what kind of substances. So the examples are, the analytical chemists would give us the they would tell us if the poison is present, and they would determine if a white powder is cocaine or a baking soda, and even they would be able to tell us how much, if they're a mixture of cocaine and baking soda, so they can determine how much cocaine is present in the baking soda. And the third one is take a sample of paint to see how much lead. So that is like a quantitative analysis, that how much lead poisonous to humans is present. So he would be like dealing with the composition mainly, and that how much of a substance is present, and what substances are present. So he would be dealing with these two. So in this case, the analytical chemist would take a sample of dung and calculate if the animal was drinking clean or polluted water based on the levels of pollution chemical in the feces. The chemist would also tell you the quantities of everything that is in the dung, how much food, how much pollution, etc. So, in short, to summarize, the analytical chemist would take the sample, and he would tell us that what substances are present in the dung, and what is the like quantity of those substances in the dung. So the fifth one is biochemistry. Biochemistry is the branch of chemistry that deals with the chemical processes. So there is 7% battery. Uh, Chemistry that deals with the chemical processes that take inside the living organisms. So, as the name says, the biochemist, the bio is related to the living organism. So, the chemistry that deals with the chemical processes that take inside the living organisms. Biochemistry is closely related to the organic chemistry because it studies and possesses the compounds important to life. The organic chemistry and biochemistry are somehow related. So, in biochemistry, we would be studying about the study of digestion, study of blood clotting, and what happens to the blood when exposed to carbon monoxide, because carbon monoxide is poisonous to humans, and it some there is some changes occurring in the human blood when it is exposed to carbon monoxide. So there is a chemical reaction going on. So as this chemical reaction is basically happening inside the living organism, and so it would be covered in the biochemistry. So the study of bugs, the study of cancer, all of these are related to the living organisms, so they would be covered in the biochemistry. So in this case, the biochemist would take a sample of dung and test it to see if the animal was infected with any kind of worms or other intestinal parasites. The chemist would also tell you how well the animal was digesting its food. So all of the five different kind of chemists would do some different analysis on the dung, and after the five types of scientists performed all their studies, they conclude the dung came from what animal? So they concluded that the dung came from a bear.